These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
It's a scoop session on a Tuesday here, Minnesota sports with Mackey and Judd, which means we bring in our friend Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. Some inside information, maybe a little reckless speculation. He's got coffee flowing through his veins. We'll start with Vikings here, Doogie. Pretty clear on the injury front, except, J.J. McCarthy, obviously. But Jordan Addison, so it's the other ankle, right? And how bad do we think it is? Let's start there.
Well, by the way, good morning. Good to see you, gentlemen. We can say on Jordan Addison, so he injures the other ankle, not the one he injured on Sunday in New Jersey, but he injured the other ankle on August 14th in suburban Cleveland. First joint practice of 2 against the Cleveland Browns, a high ankle sprain. He came back relatively quickly. At least compared to a lot of other athletes, I believe, that would have needed at least another week or 2. So he can recover. Like, we have evidence in the last couple weeks that he can recover from an ankle injury pretty quickly. But I do believe, my sense is him playing Sunday against the 49ers at US Bank Stadium, that would be a bit aggressive. Clearly, we'll know a little bit more Wednesday into Thursday, but I can't imagine he's going to be doing anything. I think he'll be working off to the side or indoors. So I think it'll be a surprise at this point as we sit here on Tuesday late morning. I think it'll be a surprise if Addison is out there on Sunday. Plus, I don't know if the Vikings think about this, but I've thought about this. It's the new turf at US Bank Stadium. I will tell you, there are still people I know close to J.J. McCarthy, it's more than one, who just opine. They wonder, the new turf at US Bank, did it have anything to do? I guess we'll never know. We'll never know the answer. But did it have anything to do with JJ's knee injury? So I don't know if that's in the back of the Vikings' minds or the front of their minds, but when thinking about Addison, his ankle, that new turf at US Bank Stadium, you start adding all of it together. I just don't think he plays on Sunday.
Now, I thought this turf was supposed to be the new and improved turf, though, because the
it
previous
is, but
turf
it
was
still needs
blamed
to be
for
broken
injuries.
in, right? Yes, it is an improvement. Hey, the old turf, yes, like there was a reason why. Now, hey, John Anderson still doesn't understand why they did it when they did it, right? From Gophers baseball.
They were too worried about John.
Sorry, John. Yeah.
Bad news for them. They want the Gophers out of there, Dukes.
Yeah.
Go play a hyphenated California school throughout the month of February. You'll be fine.
Correct. So, yes, this new turf is significantly better. I'm just saying there is something to be said about, breaking it in, and I'm just telling you. I don't know. I'm not George Toma. I'm just telling you what JJ's people have told me, that they just wonder. They don't know. But I'm just throwing that out there, wondering in my own mind. That's not from anybody with the Vikings. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think we're all also trying to wonder here what to make of. It's week 1 in the NFL. Things can change on a dime. Not everything is flowing. It's the Giants and the Panthers are sort of fighting for worst team in the NFL right now, I think, in power rankings. So gigantic grain of salt, but some great signs in that first game with the way Sam Darnold played. Kevin O'Connell called a great game from his end. And then even like just offensive line-wise, we always know that Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill are going to play well. Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, a little spotty. PFF loved Blake Brandel in that game. He was the second highest graded guard in the entire league in week 1, Doogie. So let's go meat and potatoes here. The Vikings clearly looked at the offensive line and Dalton Reisner and said months ago, Blake Brandel, we're going to put him in a spot. We're going to give him a couple more bucks, and he's still going to have to compete for a spot. But they saw something in Blake Brandel, and week 1, they were validated with him as the starting left guard.
Absolutely. And I had a nice conversation with Blake in the locker room on Monday. He feels so good just being locked in at one spot. Now, going back many months when they gave him the contract they gave him, we all thought in that moment, that is starter money. You're not paying Blake to be a backup. But it's still a transition, right? Like, left guard wasn't common to him. He has put in all sorts of work. And yeah, like just from the eye test, I trust that PFF great grade. And so a credit to Blake. And so, yeah, I mean, the Vikings feel pretty good about that left guard spot. Now, yeah, the center, the right guard. Although I do think those two guys, Phil, got better as the game went on. And Judd Schmidt told me, Joe Schmidt in my office, TV office, told me this on Monday. I did not know this, but Garrett Bradbury might have been playing through something. Like maybe he wasn't quite 100%.
He tweaked his knee during the game.
Yeah.
And
okay, so it happened
he went
in
in
game.
tent briefly. Yeah,
that's right. So, like, yes, they need to be better, those two, Bradbury and Ingram, but overall you feel pretty good. Plus, how about Aaron Jones? His ability to absorb some contact and not go down initially. So yards after contact. Like Blake told me, there was one run in particular. Yep. He's like, I really didn't give Aaron much of an opportunity. And next thing you know, he runs for 7 or 8 yards.
The nice thing about him is he is, when I saw him in camp for the first time, he's smaller than you think, but because of that, he's really, really tough. But I would describe his style as slithery as well. Like he is able to fit through holes. That's sort of the type of thing at the end of the day that Dalvin couldn't do by 2022, 21. He struggled. Like if you watch Jones run, watch him not just find holes, but stop on a dime, put his foot in the ground and cut. Like he does things that belie his age. On Brandel, I think the key thing there was, because O'Connell doesn't blow a lot of smoke. If he doesn't like you, he's just not going to talk about you, Dukes. If you recall a year ago in practice, and O'Connell doesn't do this a ton, he would rave in press conferences about what Blake was doing in practice, blah, blah, blah. And I think the most important thing, too, he can run block. Dalton struggles. He can run block. And I think if you have the left side of that line now is pretty strong with Darisaw, who was a monster on Sunday, and Brandel. You know what I did see? I don't know if Ingram improved necessarily, but it felt like they were scheming a bit to keep the pressure away from Ed. So, like, there are things as a play caller schematically that can be done. So, again, that goes back to Phil's point. I think O'Connell called a great game. I think O'Connell did a fantastic job. And now he's got the personnel, especially with Jones, where it becomes much easier, I think, to run plays without them being snuffed out immediately because the running back's not that good.
Yeah, I mean, you touch on the confidence that KOC has. How about on the other side of the ball and Brian Flores?
Yeah.
And, like, Brian was in the mix for that Giants job. We didn't bring this up last week. Maybe you guys did on Purple Daily. But, like, those close to Brian thought he had a legit chance in 2022. But, like, Bill Belichick, others thought it was always going to be Brian Daboll. You think about Shane, the GM with the Giants, his connection to Daboll. Like, a lot of people thought it was to satisfy the Rooney Rule, right? But there were a couple people close to Brian who thought, you know what? Like, he legitimately has a shot, even with everything going on in that moment, especially, that he had a legit shot for that Giants job. And so it had to feel really good, because I don't think he ever really had a legit chance at that Giants job 2 years ago. It had to feel good to do that to the New York Giants. And so credit to Brian Flores. I mean, we talked all August about, what it would look like on third down with Dallas Turner, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, all on the field together. I thought they tackled really, really well. I mean, that's always a mystery to me. You don't practice tackling all that much. These guys don't play in these preseason games. You just don't know on the tackling. I thought they tackled really well on Sunday.
Yeah. Real quick, back to you guys were talking about Aaron Jones there for a minute. And in week 1, he had the second most yards after contact per attempt, 74 of his overall yards. So like 80% of his yards were after contact. Not a fluke. Last year, he was tied for 6th among all running backs in yards after contact per attempt. And I mean, and it's a list, man. Like, he was just ahead of Christian McCaffrey and Derrick Henry in that category, just behind Breece Hall, James Conner, Devon Achane, what he did in the games he was healthy for Miami. So again, Aaron Jones, really good yards after contact, because you got a running back. You're going to pay a running back a couple bucks. what do I need you for? Well, the offensive line does their job, but then like when they don't do their job or when a defender is about to tackle you for a no gain or a loss, can you turn it into something? And Aaron Jones is very good at that. Last year, by comparison, talking about the ex-girlfriend here, Alexander Mattison was 38th in average yards after contact per attempt. So just more evidence that upgrade, which I feel like still under the radar, even like among Vikings fans and media talking points, you go down this list of things that were interesting in the offseason, and week one, that was one of the most impactful things, is just getting a high-end running back who can make something out of nothing, Doogie.
How many total touches for Aaron? I'm looking that up briefly. So the 14 carries plus the 2 catches, so 16 total touches. I think that's the general idea. I mean, I think there will be some games where it's 18, 19, 20. I think it'll be rare if we see him have a game where he's touching the ball 25 to 27 times. So the old pitch count, that they are aware of his injury history, that they have enough confidence in Ty Chandler. So as good as Aaron was, my sense is that's the general idea in that ballpark in terms of touches.
And I think the thing too here is the fact that, to your point, they trust Chandler now. Like you do have, because I am curious if a year ago at this time, and it became pretty obvious that Madison was not like the guy. If they had trusted Chandler, which they did not, there's no question about it. O'Connell talked about him and always sounded very skittish about, what would there have been a difference in the run game then? Because Chandler, when you watch him run still, I mean, he might have issues, but one, he caught a nice pass there on second and 8 or 10 from the 2. And he has the ability to be, I think, easily the fleetest of foot of the backs. So, the fact that he came around and obviously worked hard, and now he must be trustworthy in their mind in pass protection. Like, this position has come a long way from what we saw last year, which was basically trusting like one guy at this point.
And that's why, I mean, it's not exactly a leap to suggest that the Vikings are going to run the ball this year a lot more than they have the previous 2 years under KOC. Now, I still wonder, Judd, deep down, if KOC could throw the ball 97% of the time. Like, I think he'd be like, okay, fine. If it's doable, yes, I'd love to throw the ball a ton. But he realizes there is something to be said about some sort of balance. So, yes, they are going to run the ball a lot more this year compared to the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Doogie, you are one of the great schedule breakdown guys, I feel like, in media. And so we do our schedule picks before the season, knowing full well that once the season starts, everything that was on paper could change on a dime. And now that we've seen a week of NFL football and Jordan Love, now the Packers aren't going to put him on short-term IR, which is interesting. And I think Schefter was reporting yesterday that they are tentatively circling that Vikings game in week 4 as a possible return for Jordan Love. I guess I'd be surprised with an MCL if he's back that quickly. But so right now, Malik Willis is reportedly going to be the starting quarterback for the Packers. Clifford is going to be the backup. So that game looks drastically different on your schedule if Malik Willis or a non-100% Jordan Love is the quarterback. We saw the Jets and the 49ers last night. 49ers look really impressive even without Christian McCaffrey. Now, short week for them, traveling, playing a noon game, which is really a 10 a.m. Central Time game for their West Coast body clocks. And the Jets and Aaron Rodgers looked old and discombobulated. So I guess after digesting week 1, how is the Vikings schedule different than maybe it was a week or two ago in your mind?
Well, I mean, heck, 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I would have told you they were going to be underdogs in their first 8 games. Well, a lot of money came in on the Vikings. So a lot of smart people won a lot of money on the Vikings on Sunday. That line shifted where the Vikings, middle of last week, or maybe it was early last week, shifted to being a favorite against the Giants. Now I'm wondering, okay, if Jordan Love isn't back on September 29th, are the Vikings favored at Lambeau? You think about Sunday, Christian McCaffrey. What are the realistic chances that Christian McCaffrey plays? Now, hey, Mason looked really, really good last night. That 49ers offensive line looked really, really good. We still have question marks about the Vikings' ability to stop the run, the interior of that defensive line, even though they will tell you, hey, Bullard this, Tillery that, Phillips, of course. Vikings love Harrison Phillips, but that it's still, comparatively speaking to the rest of the defense, a weaker spot. And so you could still say, okay, even if McCaffrey doesn't play on Sunday, hey, the Niners last year here didn't have Trent Williams, didn't have Deebo Samuel, right? Those two guys were out for that Monday night game on October, whatever it was, 23rd last year, that the Niners now have those guys. Okay, maybe not McCaffrey, but that they feel confident enough in that offensive line that Mason can do enough against the Vikings. So you still feel like, okay, even with everything you laid out, yes, body clock, it's a 10 a.m. Pacific time kickoff on Sunday, all that short week, that the Niners are still favored on Sunday. Houston the following week, I think you feel pretty good about saying Houston is probably a slight favorite, but you feel better about week 4. Yes, do you now feel a lot better about week 5 in London after watching that debacle with the Jets last night, thinking about the Niners being able to do that? Why can't the Vikings do something comparable to the Jets defensive front? Hassan Reddick, are they going to have Hassan Reddick by then?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Yeah,
what a debacle that situation is. So you feel better about week 5 by, okay, Detroit Rams. The Rams offensive line is in shambles, injuries left and right. So yes, that's a short week, but maybe that game on October 24th isn't as bad as you think. And even that game on October 20th, home game, but maybe you feel a little bit better after watching the Lions on Sunday. So sure, I get it. Overreaction to week 1. I always thought they would go over, Phil, the Vegas over-under of 6.5. Yeah. Always felt confident they will go over that. But I wasn't sure they could get to 9 wins, let alone double-digit wins. Maybe they can get to 9 now, but I still need to see a little bit more because I'm with you. The Giants, we know there's 4 or 5 really bad teams in the NFL. The Giants are one of those teams. They can start thinking about the Texas quarterback or the Georgia quarterback or the Miami quarterback, one of those guys to replace Daniel Jones.
The Colorado quarterback, perhaps?
Oh, boy.
Perhaps.
There's a story.
Deion wants his guy with the Giants. He may want his guy in Vegas or somewhere else.
Or apparently Deion told the Colorado marching band, don't play the pep song after Shedeur scores a touchdown because we want to play Shedeur's rap song throughout the stadium.
Shedeur threw his offensive line under the bus after, and they probably deserved it. But I mean, no National Football League executive wants to hear a quarterback
dude. He's a clown.
Deion played cornerback.
He left the field early too. Do we know why?
Yes. No, because they knew the Nebraska students would rush the field, and they didn't want him to get hurt if they rushed the field.
So just him. So they were only worried about him or maybe Hunter.
But he's a quarterback. You can't. But
by the way, hold on. Nebraska, your heritage, as it's been a while. I get there's a generation that.
It's Colorado.
Dude, Colorado is a 500 team, completely unranked. We're storming
kids
the
want
field
to
now.
Storm the field.
Yeah,
Illinois beats number 20 Kansas.
Then they
I stormed the field for that Rhode Island game.
But Illinois beating Kansas? Okay. The Illinois fans stormed the field on Saturday night. So if they have any excuse to storm the field, they will storm the field. Hey, put it this way. If the Gophers beat Iowa on September 21st, I bet we'll see some fans on the field.
Oh, God, for sure.
I'll be out there for sure. Yeah.
No question. So back to Sunday's game, where I find this game, this game to me is going to be at least early season pre-bye week. Very instructive. This is going to tell us a lot.
Well, yeah, we'll learn some more, right?
Yeah,
yes.
but here's the most
that good.
But here's the most important thing, Dukes. In my opinion, the most important thing is this: San Francisco is a tough team, and they like to kick your ass physically, and that's been a Shanahan staple. And the Vikings, quite frankly, I thought last year were soft. O'Connell hates that word, but he clearly agreed because training camp had a different tempo, tenor to it. I think Sunday's game, I want to see the Vikings, even if they lose, physically compete here, because it feels like it's been a long time since we've seen a Vikings team play a Niners team and the Vikings don't get beat up. I want to see them be physical as hell in this game.
So you think they got beat up last year?
San Francisco kicks your ass. I felt they did.
They did kick your ass.
I felt they did. I felt they got beat up too much overall last year. And without if Deebo had played, that game's different.
Well,
So I'm glad-
Trent Williams,
gotcha.
Trent Williams
And Trent
was
Williams
the
is
real.
that game is
Yeah, but
different.
I want to see the
Yeah.
Vikings. The most important thing, and we saw a little bit on Sunday, but again, the Giants aren't good. The Vikings played a tough game. Like, they were physical. They were ready to play from week one. A year ago, I thought the first 4 games, that team looked like it was still coming out of the training camp hangover. That was gone against the Giants, and now I'd like to see that against San Francisco on Sunday. That would be impressive to me.
I would like to see it, but if we're chatting in this space next Tuesday, and let's say the Niners win, whether it's by 1 score or 2 scores, but impose their will enough, I don't think we necessarily need to overreact. I think that would be more about the Niners being that good, not necessarily an indictment on the Vikings.
They play 1 game a week. All I want to do is overreact every single time.
Football! Yeah, no, I get it. I understand.
Every single time. That's why I'm here on Earth. Overreact.
I get it. I'll tell you this much. I mean, heck, if the Niners could have run the ball 45 times last night, they probably would have.
Jordan
And
Mason.
so McCaffrey or no McCaffrey on Sunday, and hey, I get it. Like, I guess it would be surprising, right? I mean, if they knew. So Mason tells Lisa Salters postgame, I knew on Friday. I don't think he was lying. Okay.
Incredible.
He knew on Friday. Then the Niners put out the injury report on Saturday listing McCaffrey as questionable. But yeah, like Mason saying he knew on Friday I was starting. And so like if it was trending that direction and he had missed some time in August, like I guess I have a hard time believing that he plays on Sunday. But even with Mason, right? Like the Niners want to run the ball a ton, but I'll tell you what, whether it's Cam Bynum, others, like they're ready to pounce on some of those Brock Purdy throws. They are.
People hammering the Niners for that, by the way. I think as a coaching staff, your defense is, well, we're going to tell him on Friday, be ready to start. You're like, dude, prepare the rest of the weekend like you're going to start.
Oh, yeah. No, you
and then we'll see how Christian
McCaffrey.
McCaffrey. Hey, we're going to go through the rest of Doogie's scoop bag here, including a trip through the Twins clubhouse. Declan was in there yesterday, too. But don't forget, we are giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the Minnesota Renaissance Festival on the SKOR North app. 4-pack of tickets. There's a listener reward section in the SKOR North app. It's free to download, and we're giving away a 4-pack. Weekends through September 29th. You got a few more weekends left of the Minnesota Renaissance Festival. So last few minutes here, Doogie. And
All right, one
Declan,
leftover
jump in
thing
here
on the
too.
Vikings, though. So last Friday, I have a nice conversation with Ivan Pace Jr. in the Vikings locker room. To me, the headline from the conversation was, he's not the green dot. He's not the communicator on the defense. It's Blake Cashman. But the New York media jumped all over how confident Ivan was. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but like the New York Post, ESPN New York, others picked up on it that, hey, like, we are going to dominate this matchup. I'm paraphrasing again. You can find it. I put it on my Twitter, shameless plug, D Wolfson KSTP. So you can watch the video of my back and forth with Ivan. But I found that very interesting because, like, maybe I've just had too many conversations with Ivan, so I sort of just anticipated him saying something along those lines. I sort of brushed it off, and I get it why the New York media picked up on it. But I'm telling you, like, I wasn't aware until Friday that Blake Cashman would have the green dot, not Ivan Pace Jr. But I anticipate that will be the move, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So, and Dex, jump in here too. So the Twins lose again. They're now only 3 games up on 3 teams chasing them. The wheels are off. Carlos Correa, he did speak with reporters yesterday. Rocco, after blowing up on the road, spoke yesterday. So you guys take us through a quick tour of the Twins clubhouse vibes here during this tailspin.
Yeah, so...
Well, Declan, I'll defer to you on Correa because I was bouncing back and forth. There was some miscommunication on when Rocco would exactly go. Had to get Rocco. It was Correa, though, Declan, that initiated. So I actually walked out of the clubhouse for a bit. Missed his 2 minutes that you guys went back and forth with him. But it was Correa, not you guys. It was Correa who initiated the conversation.
Yeah, Correa came up from early BP and basically looked at a few of us and said, do you guys want an update? And he told us that he's undergoing new treatment that is very painful, that brings tears to his eyes. It is that painful, but it's progressing to the point where he's been able to sprint 3 of the last 4 days. He's waking up in no pain, and that he has a date in mind. He hasn't told the team that yet. He hasn't confirmed that with the team.
Is it March 30th, 2025?
Yeah, that's also true. No, he did not confirm that date, if that was 24 or 5 or 6. But yes, he's undergoing new treatment that is I guess starting to work for him, and we'll see where that leads him in a return to the Twins.
And he went out to the West Coast, so that was
Yes.
driven by his representation. That
Yes,
wasn't driven by anybody at Target Field.
Correct. This was a new opinion from a different doctor. That's
Yeah,
correct.
so that was driven by Scott.
Yep.
Others that are not associated with the Twins, which is fine. These guys go for second opinions, third opinions all the time at the recommendation of their representation. I still think the timeline is about what I suggested last week. That, okay, the Saints are home next week. He's not flying out to Columbus to play like Saturday or Sunday of this week, where the Saints are this week. But the Saints are home next week. Get in a game or two, maybe it's 3. Next week at CHS, then rejoin the Twins for that final week of the season, that homestand. Miami Marlins 3 games, Baltimore Orioles 3 games, if all goes well. Now, Byron Buxton ahead of that. So Buxton, maybe they brought up these pitchers from Cedar Rapids, single A Cedar Rapids, to throw live BP to Buxton, Correa, Margot, and Kepler. And so Buxton, I still think he could probably use a game or 2 with the Saints, but maybe not. I mean, he got some at-bats last week. It's not like he's far removed from in-game at-bats. So he played for the Saints a little bit last week. Got, 4 or 5 at-bats, Declan?
Yeah, before.
And so you face these single-A pitchers. At least they can bring it a little bit heat-wise. It's something that maybe you have Buck at some point next week.
I'd be shocked if Buck does a rehab. I think
so.
He's
that's the idea. So you have Buxton in Cleveland and Boston next week.
Yes.
I mean, you think about those 3 games in Boston. Maybe we're fixating too much on that Cleveland series, those 4 games in Cleveland next week. You think about Boston. So the Twins have tiebreaker over the Tigers and Mariners. So the Twins are still in a good spot, even free falling. The Twins are still in a good spot when thinking about the Tigers and Mariners. They don't have the tiebreaker over the Red Sox. We don't know who has that tiebreaker. Those 3 games matter at Fenway. And hey, right? Like the Red Sox might look at it and say, if we're 3 back heading into a week from Friday, let's sweep that darn series. Then we tie the Twins, and we have tiebreaker over the Twins. So you think about the significance of those 3 games in Boston. But like I was going back and forth with our mutual friend, John Carter, who's a VP with the Boston Red Sox. He told me, so the Twins in their last 30 or 31 games are 13-17, or if you go to 31 games, 13-18. Do you realize the Red Sox have not picked up 1 game in that time frame? Now, they picked up a game last night.
They finally won last night, yeah.
So entering last night,
they should
the Red Sox. So entering last night, the Twins, this is what it was. Entering last night, the Twins were 13-17 over their last 30 games. The Red Sox did not pick up a full game on the Twins over that time frame. So that just tells you the Red Sox have not been playing great baseball. The unfortunate thing is, since the All-Star break, Cleveland has been pedestrian, has been mediocre. This division was there for the taking. You win the division this year, different from last year. It certainly looks like you will be a 1 or a 2 seed. So you get that first round bye. Last year, the Twins win the division, but they were the 3 seed, had to play in the first round. But this year, you win the Central. Very good chance that the West winner is not catching you, that you get that first round bye. But at this point, winning the division is completely off the table.
All right, I got 2 questions here. So,
only 2?
Oh, well, I got a Correa and Buxton thought. Let's go backwards on Buxton first. Buxton walked to the dugout and left the Twins game in which he played and ended up on the IL after an
August
at-bat.
12th.
After an at-bat.
And he tried to go back in that game.
Yeah, the Saints game, he got ejected and left after an at-bat. So, I see he's running.
At-bats, but yeah.
But he's running. Okay, that's great. Clearly, the problem is in the rotation of his hips when he tries to hit.
Yes.
So,
that's what happened at CHS, yes.
Yeah, so I don't understand why so he comes back. Okay, great. And he swings at a pitch. Okay. It's a pain threshold thing, which is not good when it comes to hips and knees. I mean, my God, the man is 80 years old as far as his skeleton goes. And then on Correa, this whole thing, I'm sorry, this stinks to high heaven. So he's got a date in mind, but he hasn't shared that date. And when the reporters ask, Dex, more about, hey, you went out to California, what's this? Because he's saying, I've got tears in my eyes. So it's oh, what? Which doctor? What's going on? he just shut it down. He wouldn't tell him anything about the procedure. Like this,
after he's the one who initiated the
right. But I mean, what I'm saying is I would love to dig deeper. This whole thing stinks to high heaven as far as the communication, not with us.
The Twins would like to dig deeper.
That's my point. But the Twins and the star player, what's the communication? You're literally picked a date and you're not telling anybody. This whole thing to me just really feels off. The Buxton thing, I get. I don't think he can probably play a lot from now until the season's done because of the hip. That's my guess. But the Correa thing, there's a story there, man. This is weird.
Well, I agree. I think there's more to the story. I think the Twins would say that there's been some confusion and some questions being asked behind the scenes. I've alluded to that a number of times, that just interesting stuff, right, that we're not necessarily privy to, but I don't necessarily disagree that there's more to tell to that side of things. Now, on Buxton, I think he's going to try to play through. I've said this for a long time. There's not a tougher player in that clubhouse. I think he'll find a way to play. Question is, how effective can he be? And that's why when Royce Lewis, Declan, to you post-game last night, tried to make the parallel to last year's Arizona Diamondbacks, how the Diamondbacks late in the season struggled. Then all of a sudden they go on a run, they win the National League pennant. There were maybe some signs, if you go back and think about that Arizona team. Declan, I'm missing the signs right now with this Twins team. I mean, Royce, his bat speed is gone. The fact that he can't catch up, like last night, to a 92 or 93 mile per hour fastball, he's way out in front on some of these off-speed pitches. Royce looks way off, just looks worn down.
Yeah, he
does. Then you think about Willie Castro, Jose Miranda, those guys since the All-Star break, missing Joe Ryan, the three rookies in the starting rotation. In the bullpen, you trust Griffin Jacks. How much do you trust Duran? And do you trust anybody else in that bullpen? I guess I'm missing Declan. I appreciate Royce bringing that up. I didn't think of that. I thought about the Rangers this time last year, losing 16 of 20 and winning the World Series. So the Rangers were playing like crap this time last year. But I didn't think of the Arizona comparison. So thank you, Royce, for bringing it up, but I guess I'm missing the comparison.
Yeah. Arizona was, at this time last year, had like the same record as the Twins, but the difference was actually Arizona was playing well up to that point. But then Arizona, like Texas, lost 6 of their last 9 games to end the regular. So both those teams, Texas, Arizona, were on life support. Were lucky to be in the playoffs, and then they found themselves in a World Series. So we'll see.
Doogie, hey, we got to go. We
got to
go.
Notes. Cody Funderburk. I still think, hey, you can tell me I'm nuts, and I'm not suggesting, he's, you name the great lefty reliever, Josh Hader. All right, I'm not suggesting Cody Funderburk is that, but I still like him over the other lefty options, including Caleb Thielbar. Well, he is starting a rehab assignment with the Saints tonight in Columbus, Ohio. So trying to come back from that oblique injury. The Timberwolves start training camp 3 weeks from today. Chasen Randall, a guard, signed to an Exhibit 10 contract. So he'll be another body in training camp, can eventually transition to the Iowa Wolves. I had a nice conversation on Sunday with Kai Shinholster, a guard from Philadelphia who committed to Ben Johnson and the Gophers in the last few days. Officially visited the weekend of August 31st, was here actually August 29th for the Gophers North Carolina football game. He committed before his trip was done, told me James Madison was the toughest school to turn down. So told the Gophers, yes, James Madison was the toughest school to turn down. Feels like people are sleeping on him a little bit. He played through a bad ankle injury last year. It was misdiagnosed early, missed some time, tried to come back too soon, but had a very productive summer. 6'5" combo guard. Ben Johnson brought up, I have no idea, but Ben Johnson brought up the comparison to Kai, that he's got a little Cam Christie in his game. So the Gophers get their first 2025 basketball commit.
Love it, man. Darren Doogie Wolfson, 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department. We'll do it again on Thursday, sir.
Okay, sounds good, boys. Reckless Speculation Thursday. Look forward to it.
You damn right. It's going to be very exciting. All right, boys. Purple Daily awaits. You can find that on your Purple Daily podcast feeds later on today. This is Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd.